Previously on Palace of Mirrors, Darien embarrassed Fantasia shortly after being captured by Bluebeard's crew. After Darien killed Trollbreath, Fantasia found an opportunity to get her revenge when Captain Bluebeard decreed that Darien must face a trial by combat. And now, Palace of Mirrors, Season 1, Episode 17, Night of Stars. Bluebeard stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, a shadow against the view screen. Knight's eyes flashed red from Bluebeard's belt. The scabbard obscured the blade, but could not cover those brilliant eyes. They watched Darien as he stepped onto the bridge. Gent gave Darien a lazy smile from his station. Deathmask did not so much as look up from his console, and yet Darien felt his scrutiny. "Ah, there you are." Bluebeard waved for Darien to stand beside him. "What do you want?" Bluebeard's lips pulled tight, but he did not rebuke Darien. With a sigh, he eased down into the captain's chair at the center of the bridge. "We're 10 minutes out, sir." Thank you, Gent." Darien swallowed and stared into the formless clouds. Fear roiled in his stomach. He had tried to grow accustomed to it, the way he had once been accustomed with the slow beat of melancholy in his heart. But he hated the way fear made him weak at the knees, and the way it made his bladder feel so full he feared he would piss himself in front of the entire crew. Most of all, he hated how he felt as though he careened out of control. "Where are you taking me?" he asked. Once it would have been a place of reflection for those seeking answers, a temple to the Palace of Mirrors. But now, most would say it is little more than a circle of stones and a pool of water. Most, but not you. Darien did not phrase it as a question. Such a place never truly changes, Darien. Much like people, when a place has been something for so very long, it does not easily lose that character. Deathmask smiled his stone smile. "All you need to know is that we're taking you where you leave the circle." "Silence, Deathmask." Bluebeard did not raise his voice, but the pirate flinched all the same. "Someone will leave the circle, but it is not for you to say who." A delusion overcame Darien as they spoke of the place where he would die. Maybe he had just grown sick and come down with fever. Would it truly make less sense than this bridge and these pirates? Would it truly make less sense than the eyes that watched him from the hilt of a sword? He squeezed his eyes shut. When he opened them, he might just be a sick boy, lying in bed, delirious. And if that were possible, then maybe Kathy sat beside him, with a bowl of cool water and a towel to wipe the sweat from his brow. He almost heard her voice whispering a story in his ear. Almost. He opened his eyes. Bluebeard sat beside him. Deathmask and Gent remained at their stations. The clouds flowed silent past the ship. Kathy still lay dead, buried untold distance below. Soon the ship would land, and Fantasia would kill him in the ruins of a temple to a broken palace of broken mirrors. No one would ever rescue Marialla. The clouds, thick and unyielding, suffocated Darien even with the walls of the ship between him and the vapor. As a child, when Darien had despaired that he would never see the stars, Kathy had liked to tell the story of the Night of Stars. After a great battle, Captain Rolana, who commanded Ursa, had been stranded in a nebula. The 12th ship of the Guard had been fashioned in the image of a charging bear, but now it drifted listless through the cosmic gas. With even her communication systems damaged beyond repair, Rolana had no choice but to wait and hope the other ships of the Guard would find her. Days passed into weeks, into months. A ship of the Imperial Guard could last a long time without resupply, but eventually her food supplies dwindled. At first, Rolana struggled against her fate. She attempted every engineering option at her disposal, attempted to repair the damaged systems or work around them, but nothing worked. Ursa remained inert, her star engine cold and silent and dark. So Captain Rolana could do nothing but sit on the bridge, staring into the nebula, hoping to glimpse starlight. She grew weaker and weaker, her body frail and thin, but she did not abandon her vigil. In the end, when even the lights had flickered and faded, she could barely keep her eyes open, but she knew that if she closed them, she would never open them again. So many times she had hoped for rescue. So many times she had despaired and wished for death to take her from her misery. Now, at the end of it all, she found she couldn't give up. Some fragile thread remained taut in her heart. It thrummed with every beat. The note it stirred in her chest, quiet and insistent, echoed with the people she would never see again should she perish. Her friends, her family, and the Empress on the throne of glass. It hummed with the sights she would never again see. The palace of mirrors atop its cliff, with a waterfall tumbling 1,000 feet below to Lake Talia. The city of statues stretching to the horizon, the stars in all their infinite patterns against the night sky, and the towering waves, rolling and tumbling across the ocean world of Lyra. She thought of the wind she would never again feel, and the dreams she would never again dream. She thought of the morning sun, drenching the sky in fire. A prayer came to her chapped lips, though it hurt to speak. The words came all the same, and she clung to them, because she knew they were her last and only hope. May the stars find me, by the palace of mirrors. May the stars pull me from this death. I will serve them. Always and forever I swear this. I swear it thrice, on my mother's grave, on the tears that wet my cheeks. I swear it by the palace of mirrors. She knew what it meant to swear thrice. She knew it would bind her and someday curse her, but she swore it all the same. She did not want to die. Exhausted, her eyes began to close. Just as the lashes brushed her skin, a glimmer of light drew them open. A single star shone through the gas, and then another, and another, until that one star became a sea of light. There, on the edge of the nebula, Greywind floated majestic and impossible, sent by the Palace of Mirrors to find Ursa. When the Empress learned the story, she proclaimed that always from that day to the ending of the Empire, the 12th night would also be known as the Night of Stars. Darien remembered Kathy's face, her eyes glittering in the lamplight like the very stars of her story. They didn't seem like the eyes of someone who had grown up beneath the crushing clouds. Remember, always remember, my dear Darien, even though you cannot see the stars, they are always there, in the darkest night, above the thickest clouds, and beyond the fiercest of storms. Time will take you and I and all we love, but it cannot take the stars. They will always be. Darien walked up to the view screen. He wanted to push the clouds aside. He yearned to open the sky just this once before he died. Why have you never left the clouds? He asked Bluebeard. I would give anything to see the stars, just once. Couldn't you take us out of the atmosphere? Just for a moment. Bluebeard did not answer at first. Let me ask, why do you think we've been on your little world so long? I don't know. Darien gave Bluebeard a hard look. Maybe you just haven't taken enough from us yet. Bluebeard chuckled, Gent snorted, and Deathmask smiled his stone smile. Do you think you have so very much to take? No. Your world serves us as a way stop, a place to store supplies and plunder. But when we tried to leave your world this time, we found powerful vessels in orbit. What they came for, I can't imagine, but they have vexed and hounded us every time we've attempted to break cloud cover." Darien gaped. In his entire life, and in all the stories he had ever heard, starships from other worlds had not visited Six since the fall of the Empire. Who? Why? The Empire is gone, and what else is there? Bluebeard smiled and stroked his beard. The Empire consisted of hundreds of different worlds. Some were mere vassal worlds under complete control of the Empress, and others, like Six, were simply outposts directly governed by the Palace of Mirrors. But many were proud worlds with deep histories separate from the Empire. They swore allegiance to the Palace of Mirrors, but did not see themselves as an appendage. When the Empire fell, they did not all despair. They did not fall upon their swords and melt their ships down. Some even coveted the power and position that the Empire held. Several powers have risen to take its place over the past 500 years, but none have lasted long, and few have ventured far. It has been many years since the last attempt, but in the past months before we came to your world, I received reports that pirate ships had come under attack. Someone hunts us, as the Empire once did in days of old. Bluebeard worried a plain gold ring from his finger and turned it absently. He flashed Darien a faint smile. All the same, we must leave eventually. I would have you see the stars, if you can survive the trial to come. He said no more. The Kraken shattered the bottom of the cloud cover and sailed over a desolate expanse, bare of trees or grass. Mountains, jagged and torn, cut the sky. Darien had never seen them so close. From here he could see the texture of the rock, which gave them an edge of life he had never noticed before. They truly towered, steep lines of stark rock, and Darien felt as though he shrunk in the face of them. Had he always been so insignificant, all his life, and simply never noticed until now? If he died at the feet of these monsters, nothing would change. The world would continue to turn. These hulking beasts of stone would be there always, rising up against the sky. The ship dove and flew over an imperial road that led across the desolation toward the mountain shadows. It ended at a circle of spiral pillars around a circular pool of sapphire blue water. Here, Bluebeard squeezed Darien's shoulder. Here we find out if you ever see the stars. Darien walked the road alone. He missed Tom's quiet presence beside him and the steady clomp of hooves, but he had left them far behind. The pirates waited ahead within the pillars. Their laughter echoed on the wind out of the mountains. That air chilled Darien as much as all the bitter winters of his life. Or maybe the air had nothing to do with it. Maybe the goosebumps on his skin came from the laughter. After all, the cold had never touched him, not until he boarded the Kraken. Bluebeard had refused to land within the ruins, or even near them. He swore a curse would lay upon any who landed within that sacred place. The crew grumbled, but they obeyed. So Darien walked down the road, alone, into the jaws of the broken temple. He glanced over his shoulder. Bluebeard had held Gent back when the others left the ship for the temple. Now they seemed to be arguing, though Darien only caught the emotion in their voices and not the words. Gent threw his hands up and strode away from the captain. When he caught up with Darien, he slowed his gait. He said nothing, and Darien said nothing in turn. The wind did their talking for them. As they neared the temple, Gent stopped and turned. He studied Darien for an uncomfortable length of time. Well, here we are. I wish we weren't, though. I'd rather be just about anywhere else. Darien smiled, the expression stiff and out of place on his face. Me too. Was it really worth it? Darien's hands still felt the phantom warmth of Trollbreath's blood. He shook his head. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't want to die. Gent sighed and gave Darien a hard look. I'm not much for goodbyes. How will I pass the time without all those stories of yours? This ship gets tiresome. The others spend all their time going on about revenge and stronger circles and the best way to cheat at cards. Oh, well, okay, that last one was me. I'm babbling, aren't I? I told you, I don't do goodbyes. Just try not to die out there. He turned and walked away from the temple, back toward the Kraken. You're not sticking around? Gent looked over his shoulder. Believe it or not, I have more important things to do than watch this farce. There's drying paint to be seen, and diagnostics to be done. Darien smiled, and this time it felt like it belonged on his face. Thank you. Gent waved a hand, brushed past Bluebeard, and walked away. Darien stood at the end of the road, frozen like a child in the path of a Ragnar cat. Rough stone steps led up between the pillars to the floor around the pool. Countless winters of silent snow had pitted the pillars, and countless gusts of shrieking wind had sanded them. Darien rested a hand on the stone. He leaned with all his weight. Despite the cracks and pockmarked surface, it felt solid under his palm. It had been nearly 500 years since someone had cared for the temple, but the pillars still stood, a testament to what had once been, a testament that even in the shadow of the mountains, something small could stand. Bluebeard rested a hand on Darien's shoulder. Well, my boy, he sighed, I wish you had never killed Trollbreath, so that I wouldn't have to make you do this thing. But I killed him all the same. Darien took a deep breath. Wishing won't change that. Bluebeard's hand tightened. Aye, I know that all too well. Maybe this is the only way I can be sure. Sure about what? Dark days are coming, Darien. Many pirates refuse to accept what is happening out there beyond your clouds. Change is coming. True change doesn't come often to the universe. Things have a tendency to remain at rest. But things cannot always remain the same. Eventually, be it in 5 years or 1,000,000, things must change. And when they do, I want you at my side. He put his hand to his eye patch. Change came to me once, and it hurt more than anything I've ever known. It burned me to cinders and turned me to ash on the wind. He ran his fingers down the scar. My apologies. I've an old man's face and an old man's tendency to ramble. He grabbed Darien into a rib-crunching hug. Please, Bluebeard whispered, please don't die. Abruptly, he let Darien go and strode up the stairs. Left alone with the howling wind, Darien shivered and looked to the clouds. Somewhere up above, the stars shone. He had never seen them. In the months since Kathy died, he had begun to wonder if anything actually existed beyond the clouds. He no longer knew what he believed. Following the ghosts of all those who had come to this place before, Darien stepped up the stairs into the circle of stones. Fantasia and Darien faced one another beside the pool in the center of the temple. The water shimmered within a reflective basin 20 feet in diameter. Time had torn the temple open to the sky and wind, but no silt or debris had settled to the bottom of the pool, and the waterline remained even with the edge. The reflection on the surface of the water glamoured in a way that reminded Darien of the star engine. Bluebeard stood on a slab of stone and looked down at the combatants. The rest of the crew stood arrayed in a half-circle around them. Their eyes weighed on Darien. On every face he saw a different emotion. Dragon Eye looked hungry, his mirrored eye reflecting the pool back in a dizzying feedback. Skeleton, 7 feet tall, pale, and gaunt as his name suggested, looked ready to be entertained. Twilight's face held a serious expression. He stood taut, like a bow about to loose an arrow. Deathmask leaned back, as though nonchalant, but a muscle twitched on his face, and the tattoo twisted and turned, as though the ink had been caught in the winds of a storm. All of them looked eager, the kind of eager Darien had once felt for Kathy's stories, the kind of eager that went deeper than hunger. Only Bluebeard, perched on his chunk of rubble, remained impassive. He toyed with his ring, running it over and over in one hand. He surveyed his crew, the pool, the mountains and sky, and at last, Darien. His eye did not hold cruelty, but it did not yield to Darien's fear either. We gather in what was once a temple, and is now a circle of stones under the open sky. When an empress sat the throne of glass in the palace of mirrors, men and women came here to see things that had been lost, and things that had yet to be. We come now to see justice done. He drew night, the thrum of metal, a note as sweet and soft as birdsong on a quiet morning. He pointed the sword at Darien, who did not doubt for a moment that it aimed straight for the center of his racing heart. You have taken the life of a member of my crew. What say you in your defense? Darien wanted to swallow, but his mouth and throat had grown so dry that it was all he could do to simply open his mouth and speak. He thought in that moment of the oath sworn by every knight to join the guard. I killed to defend the innocent from harm. He faltered at the laughter of the pirates. He had never before known how sharp laughter could be. Very well, Bluebeard nodded gravely. Trollbreath cannot seek justice for himself. Will another take up that sacred duty? Fantasia took a step forward. Her hands rested lazily on her hips. She had tied her long black hair into a tight bun. The wind brought a flush to her pale skin. I'll gut the boy, the way you should have the day we found him. Her eyes, the color of night clouds, the color of wet stone, the color of midnight snow, honed in on Darien. They matched her sharply drawn lips and severe cheekbones. She had always been beautiful, stirring an unsettling attraction within Darien, but here and now she looked something more than beautiful. The other pirates looked small against the ruins, with the mountains imposing upon the horizon. Fantasia belonged in a way the others never could. She stood as though she, too, had been sharpened by 1,000 winters and more. Better than you have stood before this pool and died, Bluebeard's voice boomed. Speak with respect, or you shall join them. Bluebeard did not belong among the mountains the way Fantasia did. He had none of their sharp edges, but there was something solid about him all the same. The captain reminded Darien of his father's arms strong around him as a small boy, afraid of the dark and the howling wind. Fantasia stared at Bluebeard for a beat. You want respect? For this broken place? I have none, but I'll give you the words. I will take up your sacred duty for justice. May I lose my life here, beneath this wretched sky, if my cause is not righteous. Is that good enough for you? Bluebeard's hands spasmed on Night. You've said more than enough. Will a second join your cause? I'll need no second. Bluebeard eyed the road leading to the ship and then turned to Darien. And you, do you have a second? Darien surveyed the hard eyes of the pirates and found no sympathy. He shook his head. So be it. When I step from this stone, the trial shall begin. It shall not end until one of you lies dead. May the palace watch over the just. Bluebeard's eyes softened as he met Darien's gaze, but the temple was no place for soft things. When he stepped from the stone, his body sagged. The moment passed, and he straightened. He nodded to Darien and rested his hand on Knight's hilt. The eyes of the sword flashed, and Darien found himself longing for the sword's voice. Had he imagined everything that happened in that room beneath the city? Had he imagined the sword's voice? Fantasia held a single sword and approached Darien. She did not rush forward. She stalked. Darien held his breath. Her first blow shook him to the marrow, but he turned it aside the way Bluebeard had trained him. They circled one another, eyes locked and feet gliding along the stones. Did you care about Trollbreath? Fantasia laughed and struck again. No, she shrugged. Actually, I hated the little weasel. If you hadn't killed him, I would have eventually. Another strike rattled off Darien's sword like hail on a roof. So why? She smiled. Why? To kill you, of course. Her smile widened to a grin. I would have thought the sword would have revealed that much. Darien moved in and swung, but she turned it aside without so much as a blink. He swung again to the other side, and again she deflected the attack. She smiled the smile of an artist in their element. With a flurry, she set Darien reeling on the edge of his balance. At this rate, you'll trip and impale yourself before I even land a blow. At least I'll have kept you from landing a blow. Darien forced the bravado, but without it he knew he would just be a boy lost in a blizzard. With a force of effort nearly as heavy as the act of keeping Fantasia at bay, he put a smile on his face. Fantasia's eyes widened, and her lips tightened. Quit stalling, Deathmask called out, an edge of unease to his voice. Send him from the circle already. Dragoneye cackled. Got him! Others took up the call, and soon the entire crew had begun a raucous chant. They stamped their feet and shook their fists. Darien shivered, but did not turn his attention from Fantasia. To do so would have meant certain death. Well, Fantasia drew her second sword. I would hate to disappoint the audience. Her attacks had been probing, but now she danced and her swords followed. Darien scrambled, but pain flared across his side. Crimson bloomed on Darien's shirt, just barely seen in his peripheral vision. Despite being drenched in sweat, Darien felt cold. He felt colder than when he'd stepped into the circle with the wind blowing down off the mountains. Colder than lying under the vent, trying to sleep amidst killers and thieves. Colder than the dark of the ravine and his sister's voice sobbing in the gloom. Colder, almost, than the night Kathy died. Darien glanced to Bluebeard, but the captain would not meet his eyes. He looked to Night, but the sword showed no sign of life. He looked to the sky, but only the clouds looked back. Fantasia whirled with all the force of the wind. Pain bit into Darien's other side. He gasped and stumbled. None of his training had properly prepared him to deal with a swordswoman wielding dual blades. For every blade he blocked, another found him. He fell a move behind, and then another, and soon he had lost the rhythm of the duel altogether. The roaring voices of the pirates gained volume. They seemed to crave the sight of his blood dripping from his shirt. Dripping from his shirt. He looked down, nausea turning his stomach. The bright red of his blood soaked the cloth of his shirt. His sword trembled in his hands, the weight of it suddenly unwieldy. Why? He screamed, his voice a broken gasp. Why are you doing this to me? Fantasia paused and shrugged. Why not? Darien swung wildly, his training forgotten, his patience spent. If you're going to kill me, at least tell me why. Isn't my life worth even that much? Fantasia tore through his wild charge and made shallow, deliberate slices across his legs. Darien staggered. How had he never noticed his own weight before? He felt the pull of gravity on his every molecule. His breathing came in ragged gasps, the air harsh and unforgiving as he gulped it down. Blood splattered, and Darien's off arm went limp at his side. Sweat chilled his skin and stung his eyes, but he dared not blink. He knew she had beaten him, but he refused to give in to that knowledge. He savored the agony of every wound. He would bear the pain if it meant struggling on another moment. Tears filled his eyes, and he let them fall. They hit the ground in muddy splashes, but they also cleared his vision. He looked into Fantasia's eyes. "You must be a coward," he spat bitter blood at her feet. "What other kind of person would take so much pleasure from killing people so far below them?" Her eyes widened, and her attack faltered. She laughed, the edge of the sound as sharp as the edge of her swords. "You're the one crying." Darien grinned through tears and blood. "And you're the one who kills the innocent and the defenseless. You're the one who jumped at the chance to kill me here, even knowing I had no chance. Maybe you've just forgotten how to cry." He lurched forward, with a slash that sent the distracted Fantasia reeling back. "The truth is, I pity you." His words silenced the pirates, who stared at the stalled fight in confusion. Darien dove with reckless abandon, ignoring every nerve ending in his body, screaming for him to stop, for him to sit, for him to lie upon the ground and sleep. Just sleep. He fought with fury, but no longer fury with Fantasia. He fought now with the fury of frustration that had filled him his entire life beneath the clouds. Kathy had held it back with her stories. Sally had held it back with her fiddle. Elizabeth had held it back with her play. Even his father had helped to keep Darien's frustration in check with his simple, pragmatic nature. Now it all came loose at once in a torrent of whirling steel. He swiped low and sliced through Fantasia's blouse. Her clean white skin showed, untouched by any blade. She gaped at the billowing fabric. The moment drew out and shattered. With one blade, she knocked Darien's sword to the side, and with the other she drove for his heart. He lunged to the side, and the blade glanced off of his ribs in a jarring rattle that sent him tumbling. He rolled twice and came to land with his sword hand in the reflecting pool. The instant his hand touched the surface of the water, Darien felt as though the world spun, so that he stuck to the earth and the sky lay below him. Except, he realized, the sky had been replaced. The clouds, eternal as any force Darien had ever known, had vanished. In their place lay a sky the deepest black he had ever known, and in that sky clung snowflakes of light. "Captain," said an unfamiliar voice. The moment Darien heard the voice, he realized that Fantasia, the pirates, Bluebeard, the mountains, and the circle of stones had all vanished. "Stars," he tried to whisper, but his body did not respond. His head turned all on its own. He tried to move his hands, tried to call out, tried to turn back to the stars. But his body no longer belonged to him. Next episode, Darien experiences a strange vision of the past before continuing his duel with Fantasia, all the way to its bitter, bloody ending. Thank you for listening to Palace of Mirrors. If you liked the show, please give it a 5-star rating on your platform of choice and share it with anyone you know who might enjoy it. I truly appreciate your support. This podcast was produced, written, and narrated by Matthew Lindquist, with music by Nature's Eye on Pixabay.